Okay guys, Champions League football is back and Barcelona are kicking off against Newcastle at the St James Park on Thursday at 8 PM British Standard Time, and we're going to do a much needed breakdown today. And no better way to kick things off than to start with our head-to-head record, because the last time we played against Newcastle was in the 2002-2003 season and we won on both occasions, so make of that what you will. But what I will say is it's not going to have too much of an effect on tomorrow's match, honestly, because it's been such a long time we played, and I know that history tends to repeat itself, but this is not one of those occasions. That was a long time ago, so we're just going to treat this on a fresh slate. So if we look at recent form, Barcelona have won 4 of their last 5 meetings with just 1 draw, and that was the game against Rayo. On the other hand, Newcastle have won just 1 of their last 5 meetings, so they're not in particularly great form at the moment, which I guess works in our favour, but it's not a reason to be complacent. Obviously, they've lost Alexander Isak, which was a massive thing for them, obviously, because that was their star player. But they've still got a lot of players that can hurt us. But to be fair, both teams are going to be missing players. And I guess we might be even missing more players than them, because Newcastle are missing Ramsey and Yoane Wissa. However, Barcelona are missing Yamal, Balde, Gavi, and potentially Frenkie de Jong. But we'll get to that in a bit. So I guess the next thing to discuss would then be who's available for both teams. I want to focus on Barcelona. So for my predicted lineup, what I believe would be the best 11 to start against Newcastle would be obviously Garcia in goal. Now in defense, I'm picking Kounde and Gerard on both flanks, obviously because Balde isn't in. However, in central defense, that's where it gets a bit tricky. I'm going to go with Pau Cubarsí and Andres Christensen. And there's a reason for this. So Newcastle are very physical. Pau Cubarsí obviously is better off starting on the right side of defense. And Christensen is good on the left side of defense. Now, Pau Cubarsí is not a really strong player. He's an amazing defender, but he's not really physical. We need that physical presence. And so far this season, I'm going to be honest, Christensen's performance against Rayo, which was like the toughest match we've had this season, has been the most impressive out of all our defenders. So to me, I feel like Christensen would be the best person to start. But I know Flick is going to come with something surprising, but this is what I want to see. That's what I believe will give us the best chance. Obviously, Araujo is also great, but I wouldn't start Araujo on this occasion because I just think Araujo hasn't really fully integrated properly into this offside system. Obviously, he missed a lot of last season, so I'm not going to really start Araujo this season, especially in a match like this. But if we move on to our midfield, in midfield is where I think like we've got a very strong chance, because I'm going to start with Pedri, Casado and Fermin. Now, Casado's with an asterisk because Frenkie de Jong might be back. But that's the thing. I want to know what you guys think. Frenkie de Jong is just coming back from injury. I think he's just done his first training session with the team today. So I don't really know that it's the best, choice to start with Frenkie de Jong. I think it's better to allow Casado to feed off of the momentum of the amazing game he had against Valencia. I think that's a better thing to do because I think changing the team every week doesn't really help. We want some continuity in that team. So I think like starting Casado, Fermin and Pedri would be the best in midfield. That would be the best way to neutralise this Newcastle midfield. And I'm going to get to what the midfield battle is going to look like in a bit. But I just want to take it to the attack because it even gets more interesting. For me, I'm going to start Raphinha on the right, obviously because we haven't got Yamal. I'm going to play Rashford on the left and then play Ferran Torres in the middle. And hear me out, guys. I know some people might think, obviously, because of those 2 goals Lewandowski scored, it might be sort of like a no-brainer to start Lewandowski. But I don't think that should be the case. I think that Ferran Torres has been amazing at the things that he does. Granted, he does miss chances at times. He does miss like some glaring chances. And he's not as reliable as Lewandowski in front of goal. But I just think, aside from the finishing, he gives us a lot more in attack in terms of that mobility, which we will need against a team like Newcastle. I don't think that the intensity and mobility that's required for this sort of match is something that you want to start Lewandowski off with. I think it's better off if Lewandowski then comes in the way that he came in against Valencia and was able to score those 2 goals. I think that would be more helpful for us in this match. Now, in terms of tactics, Newcastle actually play the same 4-3-3 as we play, which for me, I think it works in our favour because every time we meet a team that plays exactly the same way as we play, because I don't think there's any team out there that plays 4-3-3 as good as Barcelona. I know PSG is really good as well, but theirs is not even the conventional 4-3-3. I think sometimes they're playing like 4-5-1 with Dembele playing just behind the striker. So I don't think it's necessarily exactly the same with Barcelona. I think that in terms of that tiki-taka football, in terms of that 4-3-3 formation, I think Barcelona are the best. And so I think if any team comes up against us, if you look at teams that have been successful against Barcelona in the past, it's either you're playing 4-5-1, 5-3-2, it's high defensive teams. If you come, pound for pound against Barcelona, 9 times out of 10, you're going to lose. And I think that Newcastle might be naive enough to do that because they play a 4-3-3. And I think that is going to help us cancel every man out. And I think man for man, we are the better team. So if they play that pattern, we will come out victorious. That's just what I think. And I think that's going to cancel each other out. So that's my, that's just what I feel from a tactical perspective. If we go into the players themselves, I think like where we should be a bit worried is in our defense. Obviously, I already think that we should start Christensen. And that's because he's going to give us a bit of that, physicality, because we don't really have much physical players. Gerard Martin is not really physical. Kubasi is not really strong in the air. So we're sort of left with Kounde and Christensen. So we do need presence. Obviously, Christensen's played in the Premier League, so it's nothing new to him in a sense. And I think he's also eager to prove himself. So he will bring his best. And I think that's the only way that we can really have any chance of sort of neutralizing Newcastle, because Newcastle scored 3 goals in the last 5 matches. And out of these 3 goals, 2 of them have been headers. And so that shows you that they've got strength in the air, or at least that's a strong point of theirs. So they're going to be looking to hit us through set pieces, corners, free kicks, crosses. So we need to be mindful of those. And that's why we need presence in that midfield. Because if you look at a game against Inter, we conceded loads of goals through crosses, and we don't want to do that this time. So that's something that we need to be mindful of in terms of the defense. If we go to the midfield, I'm not too worried about the midfield. I just think Casado, Pedri and Fermin, just do what you know how to do. Just do what you've done against Valencia. Keep the ball. Don't let them get near the ball, because I know they're going to try to be physical in midfield to try to sort of like stifle our play, and we can't fall for it. Draw those fouls, get them to get yellow carded early in the match. Newcastle are going to want to start with, high intensity to sort of draw the crowd into the game. And what we need to do is to stifle that by not conceding early. Barcelona's fond of conceding early. So what we need to do is to put them on the high press, because their defenders are very prone to mistakes. They're prone to they have a few errors in them. And this is why I feel like starting Rashford, Raphinha and Ferran Torres is really important, because it gives you that mobility in Lamine Yamal's absence. So we need to put pressure on Trippier. We need to put pressure on Livramento. We need to put pressure on those 2 centre-backs, which will then force them to make errors and help us to sort of like get that early goal. Because once we're able to get that early goal and neutralize the crowd, Barcelona, I'm confident that we can control the game. So that's what I feel. Now, in terms of who to bring on, because obviously I've mentioned my starting 11. Now, who to bring on? I think that in defense, at some point, Araujo will come into the match. It depends. I don't know who Flick is going to take off. There's been situations where he brings in Araujo, moves things around, and we even go to a back 5. I don't know if he's going to do that on this occasion. I don't know if he's going to warrant it, because I think for us to do that, we really need to be like protecting a lead for us to have to do that. But I don't think this is going to happen. But I think I would rather bring in Araujo than Eric Garcia. I wouldn't bring in Eric Garcia in central defense. If at all, Eric Garcia is going to come into this match, he has to be in replacement for Kounde. I don't want to see Eric Garcia in central defense. And it's not because I have anything against him. I just feel like this match is too high intensity. I feel like we need somebody that's physical enough to be able to withstand the sort of pressure and intensity that Newcastle will be bringing. And also, he's not really tall, so we can't have him and Kubasi in our backline at the same time. It's just going to be a mismatch, So that's just what I think. But in terms of our midfield, I'm pretty confident. It's either you start Casado and then you bring in Frenkie de Jong, or you start Frenkie de Jong and then you bring in Casado, whichever one that Flick decides to go with. But I'm more leaning towards Casado, because I think he's not had any injuries, he's still fit, and he played a very good game against Valencia. And I think, we need to ease Frenkie de Jong back into it. We don't want to just throw him in there. But obviously Flick knows better. It depends on how fit Frenkie de Jong is and how he does in training. Now, Dani Olmo at some point will also feature in this match. My only issue with Dani Olmo is he isn't physical. I just don't know. I think he's really good at sort of like making those decisive passes, sort of breaking those lines. But my problem is when it gets physical, Dani Olmo tends to fizzle out of the game. He just tends to fade away. He's not up for that physical, high intensity, play. He's not that sort of player. That's just what it is. So that's my only skepticism about bringing Dani Olmo in. Now, obviously in attack, Lewandowski is going to come on at some point. Obviously, we know that. So he's going to come on for Ferran Torres. And also, I'll be expecting Raphinha to move to the left wing, Rashford taking off, and Rooney Bargi coming in on the right. Because I just think we need to move things around in that attack. I don't think we need to keep it the same throughout the match. I think we need to make it a bit dynamic, and that might be something we will need at some point in the match. So that's just my opinion from a tactical perspective. I want to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comment section and let me know what you think. Do you agree with my starting lineup? Do you think someone else should have started instead? Let me know in the comments. So now if we move on to predictions, I'm predicting 3-1 to Barcelona. Now, I know this sounds ambitious because you're going to England, but I just think our attacking threat is just overwhelming, guys. I think we're going to overwhelm Newcastle. I think there's going to be moments where they're going to be naive and Barcelona are going to capitalize, because there's one thing about this Barcelona team. They know how to capitalize on chances. You see the shark, Ferran Torres. You see Raphinha, one-time volley Raphinha. Bro, he's back. And so if you give him the slightest chance, I'm certain he's going to score. And also, Rashford coming back to England since leaving Aston Villa, I just have the feeling that Rashford would want to prove himself. He's going to want to show out. So that's something that I'm looking forward to as well. I'm hoping that he has a really good match. But that being said, yeah, my prediction is 3-1. Let me know what your predictions are in the comment section. I really want you guys to get engaged. Let me know what you think. Don't just watch the videos and just keep quiet. Just let me know in the comment section. Let's have a conversation. Let's build a community. And I'll try to be doing this before and after every match. And also, I'll be bringing you news about Barcelona as well. So let's build a community. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Now, in other news, I just want to mention that MTT has sort of retired from football at the age of 31, which I think is a bit early, especially for a defender. But, he's, sort of suffered from injuries over the years. He signed for Barcelona in 2016. I think he stayed on till 2023. And I think after the first 2 seasons, it was just injuries upon injuries upon injuries. And I think, obviously, he's decided to sort of like call it quits. So I think, all my congratulations go out to MTT. He's had an amazing career. I think he's won the La Liga with Barcelona. He didn't get to win the Champions League, but he won that World Cup with France. I'm sure he wishes that he would have stayed a bit longer, but not a bad career in general. Okay, so something else I wanted to touch on was the issue of stadiums. So our next La Liga match is against Getafe, and that's on the 21st of September. Unfortunately, we're not back to the Camp Nou yet, so we're going to be using the Johan Cruyff Stadium again, just like we did against Valencia. So we're expecting another 6,000, fans. That's the capacity, which is not really ideal. Obviously, we all thought that the Camp Nou would be ready by now. However, the Camp Nou will be officially launched or relaunched or reopened, whichever word you prefer, on the 28th of September, and that will be against Real Sociedad. Now, we're not going to use the full capacity of the stadium. It's going to be like 30,000 fans that's going to be able to be there. Obviously, that's an upgrade from 6,000, but still, it's not ideal. But that's not the issue. The issue is a couple of days later, we'll be playing PSG. And this time around, we wouldn't be playing in the Camp Nou. So it's Johan Cruyff, it's Camp Nou, and then against PSG is going to be at the Montjuic. Now, the thing with the Montjuic is it's good because we're going to be able to have a lot of, fans, out there. So is it about like 40, 50,000 fans that are going to be able to attend, which is going to feel more like a home Champions League match, especially because you're playing against PSG, yeah? These are the defending champions. So I think that's the main reason why they've decided to go. They want it to feel like home for those players. They want those fans to be able to sort of like lift the spirit of the team, which I understand. The problem with the Montjuic is, if we play that match in the Montjuic, the new Champions League rule is whatever stadium that you play your first home match is going to be the stadium you play the rest of your home matches in the group stages. And so if we play that first match in the Montjuic, that then means that the rest of the matches, even if the Camp Nou is fully ready, we will still have to play the rest of our group stage fixtures in the Montjuic. And that's not really ideal. So I don't know how Barcelona plan to do that, to be honest. I don't even have an opinion. I don't even have an opinion, because on one hand, I do get, the atmosphere is going to be more energetic than if you played at the Camp Nou with a reduced capacity. But I'm just worried that the Camp Nou might then become ready, and then we'll still not be able to use it because we've, gone ahead to start the first match in the Montjuic. So is the PSG game really worth potentially missing out on using the Camp Nou for the rest of the matches? I don't really think so, because, I know Barcelona want to start strong, but if you look at PSG from last season, they started really badly in the group stages and then they went on to win the competition. So I don't think it's about how you start, even though it's important to start strong. But I honestly, for me, I'm leaning more towards Camp Nou, but you guys let me know. Do you think Barcelona should risk, using the Montjuic against PSG and then having to use that for the rest of the group stage? Or are you more leaning towards, using the Camp Nou regardless of the reduced capacity? Let me know in the comment section. And so that's it for me, guys. I'm going to be back here after the match against Newcastle to hopefully celebrate what I hope will be an important first win in the Champions League. So yeah, see you in a bit, guys, and Fisca o Barca.